Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us after the break. My name is Célia Belin. I'm the head of office in Paris and a senior policy fellow in the US program, and both places are going extremely well. I am here to present our newest ECFR policy brief from the US program, which is called Imagining Trump 2.0, 6 Scary Policy Scenarios for a Second Term. It was authored by the team of the US program, Jeremy Shapiro, who's on the panel afterwards, Maïda Hougue, and myself, with help from our coordinator, Chris Herman. ECFR launched the US program last November in order to help Europeans navigate political changes in the US and to anticipate possible shifts in US foreign policy. And you know, let's face it, Europeans may need a lot of help these days regarding the US. Of course, it's still possible that Joe Biden is reelected or whoever is the next Democratic candidate at this point. But it seems only prudent to actually think also about what will happen if Donald Trump makes it back to the White House. So to guide Europeans in this task, we have developed a series of 6 foreign policy scenarios that could take place in the first year of a second Trump term. The scenarios build on Trump's own statement, on private conversations with Republican thinkers, on policy ideas emanating from Republican think tanks. And in order to create the scenario, we also looked at the direction of travel of US foreign policy under Trump. Because Trump himself is erratic, sometimes incoherent, some would say pragmatic on foreign policy, but there is a policy ecosystem around him. And the US program last year has worked on a previous policy brief that has identified the factions around the American president. So let me just go through them quickly. First, there are the restrainers who want to reduce radically US security role in the world and want the US to focus primarily on America, on the southern border in particular. Those are representative of the foreign policy of the electoral base, and they are represented here. Oh, actually, that's Tucker Carlson. I was expecting Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it works as well with Tucker Carlson. And that's really the foreign policy of the MAGA crowd. Second, there are the prioritizers who want the US to prioritize Asia over Europe and the rest of the world. And they are very present in think tanks, in policy circles. It's highly discussed. It's represented here by J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, who's both a restrainer and a prioritizer, but has been sensitive to these arguments. And finally, the primacists, who want the US to continue to lead and deliver on a global foreign policy. It's still a dominant segment in Congress and in the Washington establishment, represented here by Senator Lindsey Graham. So we used ideas from all of these 3 tribes and from Trump himself to explore 6 potential policy scenarios under a Trump administration. However, I will only quickly present a couple of them today and hopefully encourage you to read the other one. So starting with the Ukraine scenario. Trump has no love lost for Ukraine, which is a country he blames for his first impeachment in particular. During the 2024 campaign, he has promised repeatedly that he would be able to end the war in 24 hours. And the restrainers and prioritizers in his policy circles are also supportive of such an idea. This is where we imagine the following scenarios. So bear with me and let's fast forward to January 2025. On his first full day back in office, which is now called Dictator Day, in reference to Trump's claim that he will be a dictator on the first day, Trump announces that the war must be stopped. 10 days later, he calls Putin and announces to the press the Russian president is on board. Vladimir might want to do this even more than me, he announces. No one in his administration knows what this 24-hour deal entails. Cabinet members and advisors travel to European capitals and start consultations. The Trump administration looks ready to accept Russian control over the occupied territory in Ukraine, and they expect Europeans to follow suit. In March 2025, Trump decides to build leverage. The administration announces a new $30 billion package for Ukraine in exchange of Zelensky's compliance to negotiate. But Trump also says, if Russia opposes this beautiful idea, there can be a lot more aid to Ukraine. Along with the speech, a slick video portrays him, Putin, and Zelensky as peacemakers. Soon after, Putin and Zelensky receive letters of invitation to a trilateral summit in Riyadh without precondition. Europeans are notified, and they are expected to demonstrate support. The contours of a deal in the eyes of the Trump administration start to emerge. Ukraine would give up sovereignty over the territories, Russia would give up military modernization efforts, and Europeans would lift sanctions and pay for the reconstructions. As Europeans start sharing concerns with the Trump administration, they receive a warning. US troops could start leaving Europe if Europeans object to the plan. By mid-2025, Europeans are puzzled and divided over what to do. Political balance in Europe has shifted, and Russia is all too pleased to accept Trump's summit. So what should Europeans do? So instead of answering this very difficult question, I will leave the panel to do it, and I will just jump to another scenario, which for this one, we imagine what would be the impact of a Trump re-election on global ideology. So why did we choose this topic? For MAGA Republicans, in particular Tucker Carlson we saw earlier, reinvigorating nationalism at home and abroad is key to reshaping the global political order in their favor. If Trump gets re-elected, this enthusiasm will only grow. And so, again, let's fast forward to 2025. So we are in February 2025, and President Trump delivers the keynote speech at CPAC, the annual conservative conference in Washington. In his speech, he announces the launch of a new ideological movement, the Global Alliance of Peoples and Nations. In the room to applaud are some of his preferred favorite European friends, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, but also Kaczynski, Geert Wilders, and Le Pen. Trump then posts a message on Truth X, which is the new social network born out of the merger of Truth Social and X. In his post, Trump says, "We are joining forces against common enemies, the liberal transnational elite that takes away the rights of our beautiful nations, the globalist warmongers dragging us into World War III in Ukraine, and the woke propagandists promoting the green garbage agenda while opening our borders to migrants and terrorists." The next day, European leaders are gathered in the White House. In exchange for declaring their adherence to the movement of peoples and nations, Trump advisors promises them that the administration will support them in their EU struggles on slowing down the phasing out of fossil fuel, on blocking reallocation of migrants, or pushing for stricter border control. In exchange, these Europeans agreed to increase fossil fuel and defense purchases from the US, as well as promote Trump's peace plan in Ukraine. Soon after, in a lunch in Georgetown with MAGA strategists, Europeans and Americans agreed they should help each other consolidate power and fight back against the liberal state. Trump would start endorsing conservative candidates and pledge to send election monitoring mission to stop the steal in the US as well as across the Atlantic. So back from DC, these European leaders are happy to showcase their strong ties with Washington. In Brussels and in the rest of Europe, the contrast with the past 4 years is striking. How will the rest of Europe react? What should these Europeans do? Again, I let our formidable panel answer. So I wish we had time to go through all the different scenarios, and I will just encourage you to read them all. You can see them here on the South China Sea, the strategic industrial policy, on the Middle East, and on NATO. In our policy brief, we did not provide any recommendations on what Europeans should do. The ambition of the scenario was first and foremost to get everyone talking. Because indeed, we have started to engage Europeans on this, but we were struck by 4 facts. Awareness and discussion is not the same as preparation. Even if everyone is talking about a return of Trump, we have yet to see any, Europeans come up with any concrete policy measures that can be put in place before or after the election. Meaningful preparation is also expensive. It's expensive in time, in resources, in efforts. And so what we're seeing is that many Europeans preferring crossing the fingers that they won't have to prepare at all. Also, we have to admit that Europeans disagree on how best to respond to a Trump 2. Some believe they will survive Trump 2 with the same tactics as last time. Some view it as an opportunity to push their own strategic autonomy agenda. Some believe they have a special relationship with the US that will shield them. But others also welcome the idea of a Trump administration because they share the nationalistic populist perspective. And finally, think tank speculation will not move Europe, but Trump surely will. So the reality of Trump policies may be the only thing that forces Europeans to adapt. So we have tried to come as close to reality as we could, because sometimes the type of emotion that only fiction can provide will allow us to really think and prepare. Finally, it was not lost on us, once we had finished writing the scenario, that actually AI tools might have done a better job than us if we had just let it. Therefore, in recognition of the fact that all of our jobs may soon become irrelevant, I have asked AI, what should Europeans do when confronted with these scenarios? This is the answer it came up with. Gather all EU leaders for a high-stakes strategy session, complete with espresso shots and croissants, to ensure everyone is alert and ready to form a unified response strategy. So, thank you for applauding AI, and I approve. And hopefully, this is what we're going to be talking about. I especially like the recommendation of croissant instead of donuts. Thank you very much.